Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Atlas of Utopias. Welcome to the second annual People's Choice Awards of the Transformative Cities project of TNI and its partners. I want to thank all of you for coming, and I want you all to welcome our audience who are watching on the live stream. A quick wave to posterity and the globe. Hi, globe. Thank you for joining us. This project is a project of imagining, but not just imagining, it's a project of mapping. Mapping the utopias that are in the Atlas, celebrating some successes that are in reality right now, and thinking about what might be. I'm Laura Flanders. I host a television and radio show that's all about giving people new senses of what is possible. We say it is the place where the people who say it can't be done take a backseat to the people who are doing it. We say it is the place where we give meaningful attention to marginalized experts. And that is really what this is also about. To kick off, I want you to imagine for a moment the media world we wish we had. Our utopian media world. Can you imagine? You would come home at night, you would turn on your TV. What would you see? You would see the evening news. First breaking story might be that the borough of Islington had won in the British High Court and fought against developers to keep the price of housing land accessible and affordable. The second news item might come from Belgium, where just a week ago a public bank was opened, a cooperative bank in the community of Leuven. In that case, we might hear that the deputy mayor is on his way to becoming mayor, or maybe he's running for president, who knows? Then we might hear a story from Wall Street, rather sad. Big pharmaceutical company has had to declare bankruptcy because they cannot compete with the publicly owned pharmacy of Recoleta in Chile. And then, of course, in the entertainment news, Vienna is again, with all of its public housing, the top 10 city to live in for quality of life in Europe. Boring news, it happens every year. Maybe it has something to do with their infrastructure. Who knows? That's the media environment we wish we had. And in a media environment like that, we might stand a chance of undoing decades of propaganda that have come to us from global corporations and international institutions and our governments, telling us that private and profit and personal is best. We might have a chance of raising some questions about what an economy and what a society is actually for, and what an economy and a society is about. For whom does it function? In reality, I want to suggest, just like every other form of capital, our communications capital has been enclosed and incorporated and privatized and monopolized, and the public has been shut out. So in a context of monopoly media, you may have freedom of speech, but there's no guarantee that you will be seen or heard. Entire businesses can be built on serving our communications back to us at a price. Your pictures, your personal details, your cat, your dog, your dreams. Serving it back to us at a price that is not just a price that we pay for money to access our own information, our own capital, our own creative content, but that we pay in surveillance and control. Tonight is all about breaking out of that media monopoly and celebrating some initiatives that are making a difference and about which we deserve to know more. What happens when you get celebrated? You feel kind of good, right? Why do you think you put all those pictures on Facebook? When you get celebrated, you think, oh, maybe I exist in the world. You see yourself reflected back. So in a media environment that reflects back everything that is bad and all of the reasons why we should fear one another, this project, the People's Choice Awards of the Transformative Cities Initiative of the Transnational Institute, this project is all about celebrating one another and reflecting back, not just a reality of now that we never see, but a possibility of a future where we could have a much bigger sense of who we are and what we can do together. So, I can welcome you from TNI, with which I have been a friend for many years. I can tell you a little bit about the People's Choice Awards, because I was here at the last one. But I can't welcome you to Amsterdam, because I'm from that other Amsterdam, in New York. So we have invited 2 Amsterdammers to come and introduce their city to you in a way that you might not have seen or heard before. So I would like to welcome up to the stage our 2 glocalists, by which we mean people who act locally but think globally. They are Femke Roesma, come on up. Femke works with the GroenLinks party in Amsterdam. And joining Femke is Kouter Bouchalicht, who is an activist, an intersectional journalist, a trainer, and a campaigner. And I will come and join you over here to hear more about your Amsterdam. So, to start, is your Amsterdam a transformed city? Who wants to begin? Kato.
Yeah, I'm very happy, first of all, to be with you all together. And one thing that's maybe typical for Amsterdam is the place. And when it comes to the transformative city, one symbol for me is how we organize our cities and how they look. And when I exited the tube, first thing I saw was a mosque. And then I walked a few meters, and then here we are in a church, doing all social and doing things for society that may tie to religion or not. But I think something that's really beautiful is that all of us do believe in a better Amsterdam in a way, and that we do give the space, literally, for people to work on that and come together. So when it comes to the place we have in Amsterdam, I would say this is one of the examples I'm very happy with.
All
so
right.
In a sense, there are some good things.
Okay, yeah. Very good. What about you, Femke?
Yes, now first of all, I'd like to welcome all the initiatives that came from all over the world to come to Amsterdam, because I really agree it's a beautiful city, and there are a lot of initiatives here going on as well. So I think, yes, we try to be a transformative city from social movements perspective. I think there's a lot happening in Amsterdam, but also we try to do this from the institutional perspective. I'm a member of a political party. I'm a member of the Green Left Party, and we got into office in March 2018, so 1.5 years ago. And it's the first time that we were the biggest party in Amsterdam. We work with the coalition government. And for us, it was really a moment that we thought, okay, now we are the biggest party, so we can change something, but we don't want to change only things in Amsterdam. We want to have a bigger impact, so to say. So that's why I'm a glocalist. Try not only to change things in Amsterdam, but also address issues that are bigger than that. So we started thinking about remunicipalization, started thinking about giving social movements more space and more access also to the institutions. And we are not there yet, but we're hoping to give them more space.
You said that the GroenLinks party got into office.
Yeah.
Magic? What went into that?
It felt like magic, I must say, because we are not used to that. Actually, the Green Left Party is always a bit marginal. Was always a bit marginal, and then also at the national level, we are not a big party. But I think it's also the time that people see that there is really a climate crisis going on, and that things need to change. That we bounce into the borders of capitalism, and that people are fed up with capitalism and the impact it has in our cities. That houses are not affordable anymore. So I think that really people want some change, and we had a campaign that focused very much on this. Changing Amsterdam, But then, you have to really do that, and that's something we cannot do alone. So that's where we need social movements.
Kauter, back to you. You mentioned that we're in a church, and it's true. We are in a Pentecostal church. But when we think about things that perhaps need to change, we also, I would like to point out, are in a Pentecostal church in the basement of a parking garage. And I would quite like to see a change where the people meet upstairs and the private cars are downstairs, rather than where we are right now, which is with cars upstairs and people downstairs. What else needs to change in this place that you love?
Well, actually, you just summarized all of it. And no, but just to make it more generally, when we look to grassroots movements in general and the ones I work with, like usually we're in these kind of places and we love them. I mean, the food is good, the company is good, and you feel like with a family. But to make a change on a political level, to have policy changed, we have to be on the institutional tables as well. And one of the things I do find challenging sometimes on local level, on the level of Amsterdam as a city, but also on a national level, is that sometimes the local communities are not invited enough to be on some certain tables, and maybe those tables have to change at all. Like you said, maybe we should be on the top of the building and not somewhere else. So I do feel like there is a gap between actually what sometimes the local people, to say it that way, want, and the way the politicians translate that into policy. So I think we need institutional spaces as well.
So invited enough. You do invite?
We try, but no, and that's some of the things that I agree need to change. Actually, the conference, after this conference on Friday and Saturday, is for us an important moment to see if we can, from the institutions, but also from local organizations, work together and invite more people at the table, but also more people in debates and in discussions. But I must say it's a difficult task because the institutions are very strong. They're there for a very long time. And if you get in office, so to say, then you try to change them from within. But it's not always that easy. And I think you make a fair point that we should try not only to reach out, but also to connect and make space sometimes, so that we are not sitting in the table and that social movements are sitting on the table and talking about policy. But change is happening maybe too slow.
To go back to this question of what makes an effective invitation, it also needs to be said sometimes civil society movements don't want to go work in government. They don't want to work with government. What is a good invitation? What is an invitation that works, in your view?
Yeah, I think one of the most basic things is respect the rights of all the different people, in a sense. I mean, we have to deal with institutional discrimination. Like you said, housing is not affordable anymore. There's a lot of problems that really touch to the core of our being. And when the politicians don't work on that and actually don't represent the values that are important for all the people, you also lose legitimacy. At some point, people are like, okay, whatever, those tables, what are they still worth? We'll organize ourselves. And I think, on the one hand, I really love that, and I'm part of that, and I think it's important. But at some point, institutions have to think about ways to integrate those tables as well, in a sense, and maybe to make space and to rethink about the whole system and how we work. So maybe we should organize democracy in different levels as well. So not only the voting process, but maybe politicians should go to the people, not only to gather votes, but also to give back the work, in a sense, more actively, instead of having the conversations inside out and expecting people to show up. Yeah. So I think we need more balance in that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
Have there been experiments like that have worked, in your view, Kauter?
Well, interesting thing is that I've seen some, to be fair, I've seen some initiatives trying to do this from the policy side. But the thing is that the people that get invited to these places or actually have the time to give up spare time, don't have a job, don't have 3 kids, don't have like a too high rent because they live in a certain space, those systems are actually put together for the people that are privileged. And if we continue working in that way and tell people to come and vote, in a sense, well, there is not the opportunity to do so, it doesn't work. So yes, I've seen people trying to do that, but if you plan a meeting about the future of your street on a Wednesday when people have to work, only the people that can take a day off will show up. And then people will say, oh yeah, we talked with the people of the street, so now we have this democratic process and now we'll do this. But it's still just one part of the street you spoke to, and people are not really aware of that, I feel.
So I want you to respond, Femke, but I also want you to feel invited to share some of your frustrations, because you also have many pressures on you, and maybe we don't always understand the pressures on people in government.
Yeah, no, I think it's the process of democratizing or is also some trial and error. So sometimes it's on a Wednesday, and sometimes you say, okay, that should be on a Saturday, and then other people cannot come, just to have a simple example. But I think that we can only change this if we work very close with social movements. So I have some good experiences with social movements working for undocumented people. I think we have a very good policy for undocumented people, very generous shelters, but also that's not enough. But we try to work together with social movements to push our agenda against the national government further. And we know what are the next steps to take, and then they can push us from outside the system, and we can push from inside the system the national government, because the national government has so many. It's so hard to change the laws that are made at a national level, and at the local level, we don't have. For one thing, much budget, so that's a problem. But also, we don't have a lot of freedom to decide where this budget is going. We have not our own tax base, only very limited ways for taxation, and also the national discourse is very much in favor of the status quo, and that's neoliberalism. So we are fighting at many fronts. So from a bureaucratic perspective, but also from a discourse perspective, but also, and then trying to change from within. But I think that we can only change it for the better if we work with the social movements and the activists very closely, because then we can try to find ways in how we can get social movements at the table. But that needs to be. We need to get closer to each other to better understand each other. How we can work together.
You mentioned the climate crisis. Is the climate crisis providing more places for collaboration, for connection?
Well, that's a really interesting one, actually, because in the Netherlands, we've had like 2 big national climate strikes in March and in September.
And you've been involved in them?
Yes, I was honored to be part of that as well. And honestly, it was really beautiful to see so many different people gather together to fight climate change in a way, and to show politicians as well, like, okay, we are here and we really want you to change. And in the same time, something that's a bit painful is that when you look at policy, we still have big businesses that don't even pay their taxes.
Go on, name names.
Shell. I hate Shell. So I can say it in the camera. But no, honestly, like, so when you look at the people and the things they want and the changes they actually are literally fighting for, going through in the rain, in a sense, at some point, at the top, different changes are being made. And the same about Schiphol. I mean, we have this airport and it's really important. I mean, it's important, yes, but we have to think about ways to deal with that. And every time people are living around Schiphol complain about Schiphol getting bigger and bigger and bigger, they don't get listened to. So I do think, in a way, there is a lot of grassroots going on. People are not afraid to speak up anymore. But for some reason, the ears that should really take careful action and listen, they seem to be away. And the problem is that we can vote once in 4 years. So after a few years, we can vote again and tell them, okay, I don't want to... I wanted to curse in the church. I'm not going to do that. But you point up. And that's a problem, I think, because now we have big politicians not doing anything and going to the COP saying that in the Netherlands, people are so aware of climate change. Yeah, those are the people on the street, but not the actual people writing policy. So yes and no, in a sense.
No, and I think Schiphol is a good example of how how the backlash maybe is from the institutions or like the national government, because when Schiphol, the airport, started to make plans to grow even more flights, well, they're already having too many. I think they should have less flights, so to say. But at the moment we address this as Green Left, and we say, okay, we have a part of the shares in Schiphol, and we can use them maybe to force them to stop growing. Then we were criticized from so many ways. Even other political parties, they thought we were crazy, that you cannot sue Schiphol because Schiphol is the main driver of the Dutch economy. And this thought of that these big companies are so important for the economy, that's so deeply felt in the national discourse, that it's so hard to break through that even if you say, okay, we don't want to have more flights, you're already put outside of the debate because you're crazy or something.
So we embrace crazy here.
Yeah.
One of the questions I ask my guests on my program, the Laura Flanders Show, at the end is often, what is the story the future will tell of this moment? So if you were to tell a story from 50 years from now of what happened now, what would it be? Like, how would we get out of this quagmire?
Well, I think actually I'm quite positive because I think that we are really on a turning point. And that even in the Netherlands, which is a conservative right-wing country, even now we are starting to talk about that we neglected our public goods. And I really believe that claiming back the public and our public goods, that is something...
By which you mean, for our international audience?
I mean many things. I mean, we not invested in our schools, in our healthcare system, but also in our the private companies that we privatized. And I think that everybody sees now, and more sees that this is not working. And I think that we are now at a tipping point, maybe thinking about how can we reclaim this public, the public goods that we have, and then not in a way that we did it maybe in the 1950s or 60s, but in a different way, just in a democratic way. So that's not owned by the state, but owned by the people and by communities. So I feel this energy. I mean, today here there were a lot of people in this room. There are still a lot of people in this room. And tomorrow there will be a lot of people, and also in the coming days, engaging in this idea that we should reclaim the public. And I think in 50 years from now, we have succeeded. Okay.
Yes. One thing I've noticed, particularly in working through the climate movement, is the young people that are coming up. I've been working with kids, basically 14, 15 years old, and we were organizing this big climate strike, and we could not call them when they were at school. They would call us back when they had a break. Like this dedication and this feeling of being part of society really warmed my heart, because I really felt like, okay, even when you don't literally have any political power, even if you cannot vote, that's the most basic political power we have, people still feel like part of society. They still want to make a change, and they have this intrinsic motivation. And I think in the future, I hope this will be the story that will be told. And also one thing the climate movement also shows, and does lack a bit still, is that we need the intersectional activists to get up and claim all the places we have. And we really need the movements to look to themselves and think about if they are inclusive or not. Because what I do see is that we still have a long way to go when it comes to that. And I hope in 50 years we will say, like, okay, that was the moment we realized we need everyone in this battle, and not only the ones who can afford to go and have spare time to be an activist, but also the people that are being hit the hardest but can't afford to be part of this whole community and activism, because in a sense that's privilege as well. So I hope we will be aware of that and continue this struggle together.
All right. Kauta Buchalicht, Femke Roesma, thank you so much. I'd now like to invite Sol Trombo Vila up to the stage. If you want to know more about the Transformative Cities People's Choice Awards, Sol is the man to ask.
Hello. Thank you, Laura.
Sol Vila has been the coordinator of the Transformative Cities project, I think, since its inception.
Yes, like 3 years now already.
And the thinking behind the awards is what?
Well, it's what a pleasure to be here tonight, finally. This is coming to reality, and this is a strong and very emotional collective effort, of course, not all the amazing technical people who is working here, but also the TNI staff and also the number of partners we have brought here, because really what is behind about this award is to breaking this idea that individualism and competition for profit is the best way to organize our common life. We're demonstrating in practice that actually collaboration and solidarity is the way to build the world we want to see.
So why an award, and what process did you use to come up with our winners? Because we will have winners tonight.
Indeed, we will. So what...
It's okay, I know you're ambivalent about the winners thing, but it's okay, we've committed to it.
Yes, I have 4 envelopes with the name on it, and you will announce them less than an hour,
Yep.
So we will know that. So what is behind this, as I said, is this idea of understanding how transformation is happening in a way that is easier to understand for the broader public. What I mean with that? So you were mentioning very well that we are bombarded by news, that usually is bad news, constantly, more in the last period on climate change. For a moment, it seems there is a kind of this urgency to act on climate change. And we know, for instance, this week in Madrid, there is a huge mobilization around the COP. Also in Chile, it's a mobilization around the COP. So there is all around the world, you have this anger for an alternative. And we know that this mantra of there is no alternative is not true. What usually happens is actually the opposite is true. There are so many alternatives that you don't know where to look at. So this is like looking at the sky at night. You have the hundreds of stars, and you're looking at many amazing things happening. So you have the social and solidarity economy constellation, the remunicipalization, degrowth, the commons, all these terms, very often very theoretical, with heated discussion about theoretical terms that what does they mean in practice. So we thought, okay, we need to give a frame to be able to map not only the possibilities of the world we want to see, but what is actually happening. So we are, with this award, identifying in which places in the world they are not only imagining new utopias, they are dreaming of new worlds, but are actually walking through the utopias and making it happen.
So what was the process, and how do you define transformative? What is it to be a transformative city in terms of your criteria?
So we decided that at this context, it was important to look at local initiatives, in particular at cities, but we are not so strict about the concept of city because it's a contested concept. It's more about local initiatives that are working towards ensuring new ways to having access to basic rights. So we are not so interested about class struggle or about other forms of constituencies of identity, which are super important. In this context, okay, how we are going to ensure access to water, to energy, to food, to housing. And we did an open call for local initiatives to participate. And we were really open on the criteria, meaning that as long as you were not seeking private profit, you were pretty welcome to participate. And that meant that social movements without a legal form, civil society organizations, trade unions, local municipal companies, municipalist platforms, they did participate in this process. And we did have a process of evaluation with an international and multidisciplinary team of evaluators. Also, those who got the award last year to include their knowledge. But then we decided we need the people to speak. So we organized...
People's choice.
Precisely. So we did organize a vote, and people decided which initiatives deserve more attention and be strengthened. And we can show a little video we did to call for this vote.
Okay.
Well.
Do you want to show that video now?
What do you think?
I think it sounds like a good idea. Let's hear it for Sol. We'll play the video. Thank you, Sol. Congratulations. All right, so that was the call for people to vote. We are going to bring on the finalists, which is to say the top 2 people. There were really 3, but 2 were able to come. The top 2 people from each category. I would like to begin by calling in the finalists from the food systems category. David Ngige from the Dajopen Waste Management Project from Kitale, Kenya. David, come to the stage. Lina Mondragon from the Cauliflower Solidarity Economy Circuit from Medellin, Colombia. Lina. In the housing category, we have Evan Casper Futterman from the Bronx Cooperative Development Initiative in New York. And from Ixtepec, Mexico, Isadora Hastings from Cooperación Comunitaria. I'm going to begin by asking the food systems folks to tell us a little bit about what was the transformation that they were seeking, what needed transforming. Was there a moment when you realized there was a tipping point and change had to happen? And then describe a little bit what you did that made you a contender for the People's Choice Award 2019. David, start with you.
Okay, good night, everyone. Yes, I'm David Ngige from Dajopen Waste Management. It's a community-based organization based in Kitale, Kenya, whereby as a community, we recycle waste by making organic fertilizer to defertilize our land, which has been depleted by the overuse of the agricultural inputs.
So David, just so that our ear can get accustomed to hearing you, you use waste management process to improve the land so they could be used more usefully for agriculture, be more productive.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? How does waste become agricultural land?
Oh, first of all, what we were facing before we started was a lot of waste thrown everywhere. Everywhere was smelling, all those biodegradable waste, like those market waste, banana peels, mango peels, those garbage, rotten one. So, as a community, we decided to, as an entrepreneur, I saw a chance. So what I did, I came up, I talked with the people, and then decided to start recycling of that waste. First of all, it created a job for the community. Second, it created wealth. Was for those people who are not taking their children to school, they started taking their children to school. Third one, it brought sanity to the people because everywhere was smelling, a lot of flies, mosquitoes were breeding there, causing out of malaria. But after sweeping out all the waste and making one fertilizer for our farms, everything was clean, and even the pocket was wealth. Yeah, so everything was okay. And even our pocket was health. So that's how we started, by making that organic fertilizer for the community to start a venture so that it may assist them. Also, the turning point was when I came from a training which was funded by Format, Forum for Organic Waste Management, I went to the community and I saw a chance whereby I can use, at least, to uplift the living standard of the people in the informal center, of the informal settlement. One, there was a lot of that. Two, diseases were there. And everyone who was asking, how can we do this, that? How can we remove it? The municipality has got no interest. It was just collecting the revenue from the people who are selling their goods. But it was not collecting the waste. So we saw that chance. And then we started that recycling. After recycling, for the first time, even those people who are having greenhouses, they started to buy. Because, even at that time was when the European countries started saying that they don't want chemical-grown food from Africa. So that one was another market niche because of diseases which have been caused by the agrochemicals, and also the soil fertility was very poor. Then the lesson which we come to learn is working together is only the remedy for mankind. Thank you.
Waste entrepreneur, David Ngige, thank you so much. Lina, tell us a little bit about your transformation in process.
Of course. Our Cauliflower Solidarity Economic Circuit gathers around 200 producers that cultivate the land in an agroecology way. This initiative is in the rural areas of the city of Medellin in Colombia. Like maybe the struggle or the fight for the rural areas and the community rights are one of the roots of our eternal conflict, right? And so the government has always neglected these communities and their rights. And in the communities that live near to urban areas, they have it a little more difficult, but because the local government only thinks in the urban citizens, despite that in Medellin, the 70% of the territory is rural, but they only think in this territory for urban growth or recreation of the urban citizens. So we had to think for an initiative that comes from the community. And one of the breaking points or waking calls was a health study that we did. And we found out a very large diversity of lung diseases and skin diseases directly related with the use of agrotoxics. So this is why the awakening call for the families that, okay, right, we have to think to do it in another way.
So how has your project grown? How has it developed?
This study, we did it in the late 90s. So right now we have the old circuit. We started only with the conversion of some families to agroecology, that the soil have to rest some time, some months, so the profit for the families have some a waiting moment, right? And then we talk about associations of the families for areas, and then we talk about a little store to direct commercialization, and that's the way that the circuit was growing from the producers. And in the beginning, but they are organized in peasant associations, and they have their stores, and with a program of formation for consumers. But because the responsible consumers, they go to the stores at the beginning for health, people with cancer, they recommend organic and agroecology products. But we tell them, yes, with that, we have that kind of products, but you also are supporting families, peasant families that live 30 minutes from here in your city. So that's the way.
So the two of you have described your projects very beautifully. I want to ask you to do one more thing, which is to talk a little bit about what makes you so proud about it. Why do you think you deserve to win the People's Choice Award? What is so noteworthy about your project? You are you are the finalists in a world of projects. What are you so proud of? David.
First of all, I'm very proud of the people, because people is power. And without people, you can't go anywhere. Wherever you are having the people with you, with a common cause and with a common goal, you have to excel. And then what I'm also proud of, my organization has been able to change the soil from disease-inducing soil to disease-suppressing soil. Yeah, thank you.
Change the soil is no small thing. Beautiful. Lena.
Well, it's a hard question, but I think we are proud of the persistence and constance of doing this kind of process. There's nothing that you can do from the night to the day. So it's a persistent. The other thing is that we made it. We made to create this kind of circuit and to be established, and that in fact, like with all the principles of agroecology and fair trade, all the communities that are part of the circuit that have better life integrally. And also, we never stop demanding the local government to think about these communities. And in the last planning ordenament of the territory, we succeed to have a district or rural peasant, like in the administration. Of course, we are now in the fight of the reglementation and the principles don't fare away in the process, but we are very proud of this.
So you have members of the peasant community playing a role in government, in consultation?
No, it's that when you plan the use of the ground, that this is for urban, this is for recreation, this is for tourism. We made that the government, local government, say that and this is for the peasant rural community. So we are kind of protected, like a figure of speech, from the urban growth, and the other thing that is tourism from recreation, and this kind of conservation that it is forest without people. That's what we are proud.
Much to be proud of. Thank you. So let's move to our housing finalists. Evan, let me start with you. The Bronx Cooperative Development Initiative in New York is something that deserves more attention. What is it? What are you transforming? And what was the turning point for your organization?
Yeah, so the Bronx Cooperative Development Bronx Cooperative Development Initiative was founded by community organizers in the Bronx. It's a community-led people's economic development agency, a coordinating body for a borough, which we have from our beautiful complicated Dutch history. A borough is a subunit, an area of New York City, but it is also itself, on its own, one of the largest urban areas in the country, 1.5 million people. So we're talking about a scale that is larger than a neighborhood. It is an urban region. And what we have seen in history in cities throughout the United States is a many decades process of redlining and essentially wealth extraction over the last 100 years or so that was deeply racialized and deeply gendered.
People might not know the redlining term outside of the U.S.
In the United States, and earlier this morning, Kate Arnoff spoke about the Green New Deal. So as part of the earlier iterations of New Deal policy, 20th century in the United States, housing policy was developed particularly during World War II period and immediately after, was deeply racialized around the idea of suburbanization. So loans were made available, but were racially encoded and prohibited along racial lines. So people who were allowed to get loans to refinance or to purchase property were racially prohibited or racially drawn. So there were areas, neighborhoods, literally that were color-coded by and permitted by the national federal government along with the real estate industry for many decades to essentially code by race neighborhoods in cities across the entire country. And that process was called redlining because neighborhoods that had even a few percentage points of Latina, Puerto Rican, in New York City, of course, Puerto Rican, Black, it was called infiltration. And percentages of people in these neighborhoods were considered toxic and bad investment, risky investment environments. So those neighborhoods became prohibited from receiving loans, which allowed property values to decrease as well as the property stock to decrease in its status. Its conditions deteriorated over many years, which led to, in the 1960s, what was part of a wave of a global urban rebellion, right? That in the process of racialized suburbanization, white people left the Bronx. The Bronx in 1950 was 90% white. My ancestors, Jewish, Italian, Irish, they all left to the suburbs. The Bronx is now 90% people of color, right? That inversion has happened across the country. What has changed now is a circumstance where the Bronx earlier on in many generations of community organizing that led to the founding of the Bronx Cooperative Development Initiative came out of this legacy of disinvestment that was both public sector disinvestment and private sector disinvestment. That led to a lot of community organizing. The Bronx, in addition, for those of you who've heard of the Bronx, likely have heard about it for reasons that are possibly more notorious, crime, poverty. The Bronx also famous for many positive things as well. So when we think of ourselves in our community from an asset-based standpoint, we think about the fact that not only is the Bronx the birthplace of hip-hop, but it's the home to many long-standing community organizations, many of which were the founders of BCDI, as well as the fact that it's the home to the largest worker-owned cooperative in the United States, Cooperative Home Care Associates. It's also home to the largest housing cooperative in Co-op City, and there's a legacy of deep sort of community effort at the neighborhood level and at the regional level to secure basic and fundamental rights in New York City that the Bronx has a long tradition of. And essentially the moment, I would say the pivot moment was around a redevelopment struggle. So there's these things called armories, which are products of a old era in which military armaments and barracks were housed in urban areas. They are, of course, now in the United States largely disinvested and no longer used, certainly for military purposes. They have been mostly repurposed as part of real estate, right, context and gentrification in New York City. And there was a many decade-long effort to repurpose an armory in the Bronx, the Kingsbridge Armory, for a large big box commercial development by a large private developer that was very friendly with the Bloomberg administration. And they had done these cookie cutter development projects all throughout the Bronx, and they were going to put one in this armory. And the community organized together, not just by the neighborhood, but across the entire borough, an alliance to say that not only did the Bronx not need this, but the Bronx had local assets that should be used as well as people and organizations to develop that site. And the negotiation was called a Community Benefits Agreement. That happened about 6 or 7 years ago, and Laura covered that. So when we talk about the role of media, nonprofit, local media covered these victories better than anyone else did. And that what led to was this moment of epiphany or inspiration, the idea that Bronx has a lot, and speaking of soil, the Bronx has a very good soil of community organizing. Neighborhood by neighborhood, I could list many, many community organizations and collectives that exist now and in history, led by working class people of color in the Bronx. And what was needed at that moment, the lesson of the Kingsbridge Armory was to say, we need a bigger vision, not just to stop the bad from happening around us, but to advance our own collective vision, to have a people's economic development agency for ourselves, to set the trajectory of the borough, particularly in the context of gentrification. And so BCDI, the organization, has a series of projects, housing is one of them, that advance these goals of economic democracy and community ownership in the Bronx.
Beautiful. Thank you, Evan. Isadora,
Yes, hello.
report to us from Ictipac.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, in 2017, three earthquakes hit Mexico within 3 weeks. The first of them was hitting Oaxaca. Oaxaca is a state which is in the south part of Mexico and is one of the highest seismic risk areas in Mexico because it's in the Pacific Ocean. So a local organization, the Ixtepec Committee in Defense of Life and Territory, they were fighting against a silver and gold mine which was in their territory. And after a year, the earthquake hit, so they invited us to reconstruct because they knew about our previous reconstruction work in another state, in Guerrero. So they invited us. Cooperación Comunitaria, the organization I work with, works to decrease the vulnerability and increase the habitability of rural communities in Mexico. We work in a comprehensive way, not just building or rebuilding, but also with productive and environmental, territory, and social, cultural aspects. So we work with all of this. Also, rescuing the traditional knowledge in those communities, which are most of them indigenous communities. In the case of Ixtepec, after the earthquakes, 2 weeks after the earthquakes, the municipality, the local municipality authority with some private companies start demolishing houses without having really trustable audits. So people didn't know what to do, and they let these demolitions happen. So Cooperación Comunitaria with the local organization, the Ixtepec Committee, we start to make a campaign against these demolitions because the houses, the traditional houses, were really adapted to climate, made of local materials, real adapted as well to their culture and even to the seismic zone. So it was really, there were a lot of losses of demolishing them. And also the waste of all these demolishing houses were throughout the riverside. So causing, of course, environmental problems. So we make this campaign and we save around 80 traditional houses. And then we have to make and analyze all the structure to reconstruct them and upgrade the structure to resist next earthquakes like the one they had. On the other hand, also all this business between the private enterprises and the government was as well the private housing developers behind that would have the opportunity to rebuild new houses. But these houses were going to be really smaller and not adapted to climate change. I mean, the housing developers have the same model that construct in the whole country without adapting to climate, to culture, to all the conditions, the context conditions of the place. So that's why we start working with the people to design their houses, to have these reconstruction houses, but also a new model for those who have already lost their houses or demolished or have been demolished. And as well, we worked increasing the construction capabilities of the population in order to build better and safer, and also analyzing all the environment and the territory, because we use local materials. I mean, they have used local materials for a long time, so we just rescued these traditional constructive systems in order to rescue them and then to build with local materials. So that was the way they start building, and now we have finished 78 houses, also kitchen for women, because women lost their traditional ovens where they cook traditional meals to sell. Is the based economy for women. So also we have built around 256 traditional ovens and one community center, and where a lot of workers formed to build in these reinforced techniques the kitchens and the houses. And well,
all right, so I will ask you the same question. Why should you win? What are you so proud of in your project? Isadora, what makes you so proud?
Well, on one hand, the local organization and also Cooperación Comunitaria's team have put all the effort and commitment to this work. I mean, it was not easy. I forgot to say that also the government gave like $6,000 to each family for rebuilding their houses. But this, I mean, it's a little money to recover what they have lost. And also, this individualized the process. So we work with the people in a participatory way. So it was really difficult to us to cope with this situation, because we were doing these meetings with people, explaining the situation, designing together, and we have all like 3 months process, and suddenly all this money came. So we lost many people. I mean, many people, went to rebuild. I mean, they have the need to rebuild, but we were, we were considering rebuilding as a process, not just to have a house, but to have all this experience and all this formative and participatory process. Because house is a process. It's not just an object, and it's not just a merchandise. It's really a process, and we have to do it that way.
Beautiful. And Evan? With all due respect, why should you win?
Yeah, I'll answer the what I'm proud of rather than why we should win. When we went at our office, when we saw all the other people in our category, including our friends at Cooperation Jackson, who we have a sort of comrade relationship with, realizing what will it mean for us to win? Will we just stand up on this stage and give it to somebody else? I think what I'm proud of, what I think we are proud of, what we've accomplished. First of all, it's about recognizing the organizing work in the Bronx, which is many decades worth of work that even makes something like the Bronx Cooperative Development Initiative possible. It is not possible without the core infrastructure of people and community organizations, neighborhood organizations that exists in the Bronx. And I would also say something that we're proud of is there's sort of a frame shift that is really been critical and we continue to wrestle with, but has been very critical for us as part of a community development movement or sector in the United States, is the shift in the thinking and some self-reflection around organizing. I'm not an organizer by training, but among the founders, organizers, to thinking, organizing has been very strong in the Bronx, and yet it has also been outmaneuvered and outgunned by the forces of neoliberalism in ways that require new thinking and new tools. And I think the openness to engage that, yes, organizing is always a base building tool. It is always powerful, but it cannot and will not always be the only tool we have at our disposal to take collective ownership and remake society more broadly. The pivot then for us, or for BCDI in the Bronx, was around a framework from fighting back to fighting forward. And they work side by side, and we continue to sort of unpack the thinking around working on fighting for housing justice against bad development, against bad policy, as well as fighting forward for an affirmative vision of economic democracy and what it means to govern in some way, govern a different society.
All right. Well, now is the moment where, if this was the Oscars of People's Choice, we would have the accounting firm of TNI reveal how the process had been done. It was all very secret. Nobody knew. In this case, I will just invite Sol to provide me with the envelope.
The first envelope.
Envelope number 1 is for food systems. Are you on the edge of your seats, everybody? You want to know who won? In the food systems category, the winner is, from Kenya, the Jajopen Waste Management Project. David Ngige, come on up. We have an award for you. We mean business. We give you an actual award. Sol will present you with the award. Very beautiful. Sol will hold it if you would like to share some words. He'll give it back to you, I promise.
Okay. I thank the TNI for this initiative, because some of people like us from the grassroots, nobody could have seen us where we do. But through the initiative, even some of the people here whom could have not known, there's a group called Dajopen Waste Management. They have known it. So I say thank to you, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, in our next category, connecting, this true entrepreneur here. In the next category, I have the envelope for housing. Ay, ay, ay. Dun, 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 dun. This has been secret until this moment. In the housing category, from Ixtepec, Mexico, Cooperación Comunitaria. Isadora, this award is for you. We'll give it back to you, we promise. Would you like to share a few words? That's a microphone.
I will read, because then I forgot many things. Well, I would like to thank Transformative Cities team and TNI. Ixtepec committee as well for having invited us to work in their territory, to, of course, Cooperación Comunitaria team for their effort, commitment, and love put in this project, and all of those to contribute to win as well the public and all the people who were contributing in different ways. Some of the women, mostly in Ixtepec, were telling us when they lost their homes, they lost also part of their memories and part of their lives. But rebuilding is a process in which it's not only the house to be rebuilt, but also all the learnings and all the experience sharing with others, and also the relate to nature. I mean, in rural communities, we have this relation with nature, and it's something that we should never lost in the cities, people who are living in the cities. And all of this, it's important to participate in this process because we need to fight for the right to adequate housing and the right to adequate habitat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would like to thank everyone so far. Also, I will say my story of 50 years from now is that in 50 years, some genius technologists will have figured out how we can all, without losing our own languages, magically understand one another. And in the meantime, I want to thank everybody who is unfortunately speaking English. Colonialism continues to demand that you do more work than we do, and I thank you for what you do. We are honored to have you give that work. So, in the categories that remain, which are energy and water, I want to bring to the stage the finalists. From the West Bank and Gaza, Abir Al-Butme from Pigeon, Friends of the Earth, Palestine. Abir. From Barcelona, Spain, Eloy Badia, Councillor of Climate Emergency and the Ecological Transition for the City Council. In the water category, from Nigeria, Lagos, Akinbode Oluwafemi, Environmental Rights Action. Come on up, Bode. And from Jakarta, Indonesia, Tommy Albert Tobing on behalf of the AMTA Institute. And I will ask the same questions for our four finalists. What were you transforming? What was the turning point? And is there a lesson you draw from your experience so far? Maybe we'll start at, I was going to say let's start at this end and let's do it. Tommy, let's start with you in Jakarta. What is the project you were transforming and how did you transform it?
Yeah, in Jakarta we have problem with the water because since 1997, the water privatization started in Jakarta and the struggle begins at a time initiated by the trade union. They initiate the rally or the lobby to stop this water privatization. But at that time in the authoritarian regime, it's hard to stop. But 1 year after the contract signed, the authoritarian regime is stepped down and the trade union continues to stop this water privatization. But as like in many transition democracy process, it's too many issues at that time, so we cannot focus to advocacy this issue. But in 2010, we start to thinking about another way to stop this water privatization. We try to reach to start the law approach that we register the lawsuit to the government using the citizen lawsuit mechanism. And
you brought a lawsuit against the government?
Yes, against the government.
A citizen's lawsuit?
Yeah. And there is a happy story and also bad story. We win in the first level. The court is agree with us that the water privatization is illegal. It's against the human right. And they order the government to run the water with the human rights term under the general command. But in the higher level, second level, we fail, we lose. And after that, in 2017, we appeal to the Supreme Court and we win the case in the Supreme Court. But when after we win in the Supreme Court, the governor of Jakarta, he formed a team to take over the water from the private company. But in 2018, in the end of 2018, the Minister of Finance of Indonesia, they using the last resource, they appealed to the Supreme Court again, and we lose at that pace. So now but after the final result from the Supreme Court, the governor, in the last statement, he still want to take over the water from the private company. Oh, by the way, the contract will end in 2022.
So where do things stand now? Is the governor on your side, or the governor is on the side of the privatization?
According to his last statement, maybe in our side, but this is a fragile situation. We don't know what happens in the future. It's also what happens with the political situation in national. It will be impact to the local, to the governor.
Thank you. And in terms of a lesson from this experience?
Yeah, legal approach is good, and in the state with the rule of law, a good rule of law, and legal approach is not enough without social movement. So it must support the social movement.
Beautiful, thank you. Bode, to you. Your project. What were you transforming, and what was the moment of turning point?
So our project is called This is Lagos, Water Our Right. And as that name suggests, this is about resisting water privatization in Nigeria's largest city. With a population of about 21 million people, Lagos is Nigeria's biggest apple. And of course, Nigeria is Africa's biggest apple. So in 2014, we got to know that the IFC was concluding contracts with the Lagos state government to privatize the water infrastructure. And of course, we've seen a trend of that current, government about privatizing public service, transportation, energy and everything. And then they wanted to pick up on our water. And we felt that, look, this is a city of 21 million people, as I said, with less than 10% with access to water. So they're not talking about how to improve access, but they're looking at how to profit from victims of their failure as a government. And the best way to do that is to sell the water infrastructure to corporations and then calculate how much they're going to make from these people that they think are not served. And we felt that's not acceptable. Water is a right. Water is a human right. And we felt like the best thing to do, because behind this government is the fact that the World Bank and IFC were coming with all those things that we've heard in the morning. And Lagos State is also the richest state in Nigeria. Lagos is like the California in the US. It's our own California, When Lagos sneezes, Nigeria catches cold. So we felt like this governor of Lagos is very powerful. It's an economy that is bigger than 10 other African countries. And the best thing we could do is to go back to the people. So right from the beginning, we decided to build a social movement. And that's why we call it, This is Lagos, Our Water, Our Right. And what did we do? We went to the people. We called together civil society like ours that have same, political narrative. We went to the labor movement because we know we can't do it. We went to religious organizations. We went to, everybody, youths, market women, everybody. And we started this huge movement. And what were we doing? We had rallies. We did petition. Strategically, we have alliances from the Global North, Corporate Accountability, they are here, TNI, PSI, all those groups were mining data for us to do our work in Lagos, which was very strategic. And so, in 2015, the state governor, said that they were going to conclude privatization in less than 4 months. So with these rallies, we make the environment extremely toxic. They couldn't even proceed. So when they felt that things were not going their way, they started devising all manners of strategies. And time will not permit us to look at some of those, including intimidation, harassment, and stuff like that. But by 2017, they secretly did a law. And overnight, they wanted to pass a law that basically legislates PPP and privatization as the only solution to the Lagos water crisis. And it appears they were studying our movements. I was not in town. A few of our activists were not in town, but eventually we got to know about it. We drove in the night. We went to Parliament. We made presentation. Then we went to the streets again. That was March 2017. Before that protest, we actually call it the mother of all protests, I was invited by our own version of, the National State Secret Police. And in Nigeria, when you picked by them, that's like the highest intimidation you can get from government. But somehow, for some reasons I cannot explain, they let me go, though I have told them that even if you guys lock me up here, people are going to continue this rally. And so we had that rally. We practically shut down. The imprints of that rally is still in Lagos till today. Anybody that's in Lagos, you find out that the governor's office was barricaded. That's thanks to us. That's going to be there. Barricades were erected the second day to cage our governor. But the turning point, as you said, was that for the first time, the Lagos state government called us and said, the governor will need 3 copies of a book that we have produced called The Lagos Water Crisis, Alternative to the Water Sector. It was very shocking. And that they were going to change those provisions of that secret law that criminalizes the informal water sector. Not that alone. We've been asking for seats to meet with the top level of government. I have 2 minutes left. And then suddenly, the all-powerful commissioner then called Adejare, called us to a meeting. And the only thing he said was like, please, guys, anything you want to do, can you just talk to us, but don't do protests and rallies again. And here we are with labor unions that have just released letters querying them why did they participate. And I said, sir, we can only go ahead with this discussion if you withdraw all the queries to these union leaders. And there he promised that those queries were going to be withdrawn. I just felt at that time that truly we do have that power to be able to face the monster that we are facing in Lagos. This is 2019 December. No privatization, no PP contracts in Lagos.
Power in the streets, a good match for power in the streets. Good. Let's go to Eloy. Tell us your story of transformation. What did you take on? And when was the turning point? And what were your lessons?
Okay, we talk about energy, but we did not talk about climate change and CO2 because the situation in Spain was more critical than us. In Spain, all the framework law of energy was written by the big electric companies, corporations, using the revolving doors with the all former presidents that we have in Spain. And they control practically all the sector of energy. We have one of the most expensive energy in Europe. The companies make every year thousands of millions of profit. We have 10% of people that cannot access to the energy that we call energy poverty. And we have a very few renewable energy supplies. And we are one of the most sunny countries in Europe. So absolutely privatization failure. It's absolutely wrong system. But every year, the same Spanish government is working on the same direction. No? So from this point of view, we know that there is no perspective of the energy as a common good. There is no perspective of the public services. and we decided from the municipality to take part and to create a new company, a new public company. It's the first one that exists in Spain, to change the situation, to put the people in the center, to make a more democratic system, to make the energy affordable for all the peoples, and to promote the energy. We was born 1.5 years ago. It's a very new company, and the first step is that all the supply for the municipality comes from this company, and it's renewable energy. We are not dependent from the big companies. All the supplies for the schools, for the lightings, all the city. We are advising to the new users to reduce the cost of energy. We reduce more than 100 euros per family per year. We promote renewable energies, and we have a public perspective. There are no cuts, and we guarantee a minimum of energy for all. And we create a space for users for participation. We create a users council, and we work with them, and they talk about which are the tariffs, what we make with investments, and what they want that is the future of the company. And for us, one of the most important point of that process is that not come from the workers from the municipality, not come from the politicians. It's come maybe 5 years ago from the civil society, maybe inspiring in a meeting like this. And it's the civil society who proposed that to the municipality. So I think that this was one of the key of the succeed, because the proposal comes from the state, so comes from the common sense.
Beautiful. Thank you. And last but not least, Abir.
In Palestine suffers from extreme energy scarcity because Palestinians have no sovereignty on their natural resources. Israel controls the Palestinian natural resources, and Israel practices climate apartheid in Palestine, violate human rights in Palestine, and cause environmental destruction. Israeli forces use energy scarcity as a tool for enforcing people to leave their homeland. And this is what happened in areas in the Jordan Valley, in West Bank. And also people in Gaza live under the siege for more than 12 years. And that's caused extreme energy scarcity in Gaza, and also caused environmental catastrophe in Gaza. So after this black image, Pingon felt an urgent need in order to turn on the light by increasing dependent on clean energy sources. So we've created clean energy solutions with communities, and this is done by implementing hundreds of clean energy projects in West Bank and Gaza. We've put power pack into people's hands, and this is done by implementing clean energy projects, mainly solar energy projects, at household levels and institutional level, also in schools and educational centers. We worked with the community in order to develop their skills in order to operate and maintain their projects. And what is important element is targeting women and motivate women in order to lead these transformative work in clean energy sector. When we've implemented several projects in West Bank and Gaza, we felt that women have a great role in operating these clean energy projects. That's why we've targeted women in order to empower them, in order to be able to lead these projects. We've targeted women in capacity building programs, how to advocate their demands, and how to be effectively affect the decision-making dialogue. And we've also to ensure the women participation in the decision-making process. We've created a methodology of mainstreaming gender in planning and also at strategic level, at national level. We produced a manual, and we trained the women and also the staff for environmental organizations in Palestine at this manual, how to use this manual and how to mainstream gender in all project and program implementation and planning and financing for these projects. Also, we've did a lobbying work toward the Palestinian Energy Authority in order to mainstream gender and to encourage them and involve women more in clean energy sector. We did a legal review for Palestinian laws, and we put some recommendations in order to modify the Palestinian law. In addition to, after or based on this legal review, we found that there is a gender unit in the Palestinian Energy Authority, but it is inactive. So we start working on activating this unit and involve this unit in planning and financing clean energy projects and programs in West Bank.
So how many women do you have involved at this point? And if I'm understanding correctly, they're not just putting solar panels and energy packs on their own houses. They're learning how to repair them, how to support them, and how to advocate for them. That's giving them power in the community, in the family. Yeah. How many women are we talking about? This sounds like a dangerous army.
Yeah. We've implemented more than 900 clean energy projects, in West Bank and Gaza. In each project, we've targeted women in technical capacity building, how to maintain their projects and how to operate their projects. And also we've targeted environmental organizations, women in environmental organizations, and also governmental related ministries in order to lead advocacy campaigns and how to effectively raise the women demands in clean energy sector. And also we've targeted more than 13 women CPOs, and we motivated them in order to apply initiatives for solutions, for environmental solutions, depending on clean energy solutions.
Beautiful. So we have very little time, but I want you to each make a 1-minute case for your project. Why should your project win? Let's start with Tommy. 1 minute. What makes you proud?
Because it's hard to drafting the lawsuit.
You should ask the women of Abir. There she has women.
Needs 2 years to finish the drafting because too many technical terms. We should learn from the beginning. But basically, we become this part of competition because we want to celebrate the struggle. Only because of that.
Okay, all right. Bode, why should you win? It's on.
Okay. The Water Right campaign in Lagos has further demonstrated that power belongs to the people. I think, personally, I'm impressed by the response of the Lagos people, the women, the youths, the labor, leaders, activists that have been turning up each time we make calls for them to march and to resist corporate power and to resist unjust takeover of, resources. I think for that, I'm very proud.
People power. Eloy.
Very easy, very fast, because we hack the system and we show that there are an alternative.
Abir.
Yeah, because we've created solutions together with the community, and we've brought years of experience together with the community in order to find real solutions for gender justice and for climate justice in Palestine. And also we've moved the power from down to up.
Well, this is a moment where I am very glad that the People's Choice was a collective process, because who could possibly choose amongst these candidates? But we do have a winner, and Sol has an envelope to give me. We will begin in the energy department, yeah? You don't need to go. Oh, you do need to go. Sorry. Once you have taken your seats and you're sitting nervously, I will begin. Okay, in the energy category, from Barcelona, Energia Eloy. We have an award for you. We have a microphone for you. A few words. It's on. Yep.
No?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much. I think I'm proud that that we are not alone. This sky is full of stars, and we are only one star more. And for me, it's important because we demonstrate that we can work together, social movements and institutions. And now there is a lot of cities in Spain that are thinking to create public companies of energy. So we are very proud of that. And I want to say thank you to all the workers and all the people that are behind me in this project, working very hard during 4 years, because I only put the voice and the face, but there's a lot of people working that make it possible. And now we have 8 employees that are every day working on that company, and it's a good award for them too. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. And in the water category, envelope. Thank you. The winner in the water category is from Lagos, Nigeria, Environmental Rights Action Friends of the Earth, Bode. Come on up here. Award, please. Here's your award. Beautiful. A few words, please.
Well, thanks very much for organizing this. I think it's fun for us. This is going to be, we work and we have fun. This is going to reinvigorate our resolve to have a definite win in Lagos. Reason? A definite win in Lagos is a win in Nigeria, is a win for Africa. Lagos is supposed to be the entry point for water transnationals to enter Nigeria and subsequently take over the water in Africa. That's why this campaign is very important. I want to thank all our international partners that have supported us. The water rights campaign, it's very unique because it has very unique partnership between the Global North NGOs and the Global South, any country NGOs. I think this is something we probably need to understudy and work more on our campaigns. So I dedicate this award to those women that we always call out in Lagos. And if you've ever been to Lagos, you know that it's very dangerous to march with traffic and the police, the youth, the labor activists, several other people in Nigeria, International Allied Corporate Accountability International, TNI, PSI, and all of us, and all of you that have worked shoulder to shoulder with us in this very difficult yet very exciting and fun-filled campaign. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. All right, we are not quite over. I want to invite Sol to thank the partners of this project, and then we have one last exciting moment, so don't go away.
Yes, because talking about collaboration today, we cannot forget the partners that are bringing the energy, their capacity, their imagination to this award. For this second edition, TNI didn't do it alone, and I want to mention the partners that have made this possible as well, which is the Intercontinental Network of Social and Solidarity Economy, Friends of the Earth International, is the Habitat International Coalition, is the Global Platform for the Right to the City, and is the European Network of Citizens-Led Initiatives. Thanks to all of them, and the world needs to know that this is happening because of this collective effort. Thank you.
All right, and then because we are very excited about the winners, but really we don't believe in this kind of competition. We are going to invite all of the finalists onto the stage for a photograph with the awards. So if we could put the awards on the table and bring everybody up to the stage, we will take a picture with everybody and we will all be celebrated. Okay? All everybody that was just up, all the finalists, come on up. Put the picture there. Come in, come in. Abir, come on, come on. Move in, move in, move in, move in. Come on in, come on in. We can't have women all on one side and men, well, maybe we can. Maybe that's the way it is. So, the People's Choice Award winners of 2019, thank you to everybody that participated, and we look forward to 2020. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for everyone watching on the live stream. I wanted you to win.